Hello and welcome to another segment of Focus SPS. I'm Azell Cavaan, Chief Communications Officer, and I'd like to thank you for joining us. We are going to have a two-part session today. We are going to talk about two important things happening in the district. One, you've probably heard a lot about Common Core. So we'll get to find out exactly what Common Core means in the state, but more importantly, what that means for us here in Springfield. And also, we'll talk about technology in our schools and how our district is moving to make sure that our students are ready for the 21st century. So our first guest joining us today is Dr. Kate Fenton. Kate, thank you for being with us.
It's a pleasure.
Thank you. Dr. Fenton is the Chief of Instruction for the district. And what that means is she oversees all of the departments that deal with instruction in the schools and courses in the schools. So social studies, math, English language arts, all of those subjects. They work together as a team to determine what the lesson plan for the year is going to be, and then how that sort of relates from kindergarten all the way through 12th grade. So big job, big job, and a lot of changes going on in that area. We heard recently a lot about Common Core, which is a new standard set forward by the state. So maybe you could tell us a little bit about, well, let's talk pre-Common Core for a couple of seconds so then we can understand how it's so different. So before Common Core, what did we do?
We had the Massachusetts curriculum frameworks. And as people may or may not know, Massachusetts has the most rigorous standards in the country. So the Common Core was not new for us. It was something that we took a hard look at and decided which of the standards that we'd want to incorporate into our own, because our standards really met the criteria that the Common Core was trying to achieve.
Okay.
So that's the previous, and the big change is the Common Core recognized how all of the content areas can support the students' literacy skills.
So when you say content areas, that means like the math, the science, and all of those things.
Social studies, the technology subjects. It kind of involved everyone to concentrate on the literacy aspect of learning. So that's, I think, if people really wanted to understand the big difference, we always had very rigorous academic standards in the past, but now we're realizing for the 21st century, it's so necessary that our students can access difficult text, grapple with it, analyze it, infer, and that can't be left to ELA anymore. It had to be spread across all the content areas.
Okay, so what I think I'm hearing you explain is that in the past, whereas I'm just going to take math for example, right? And math may have been all numbers. Under Common Core, we're now figuring out a way to incorporate literacy, reading skills and writing skills into math, into science, into all of these other content areas. And that's based on the fact that it's so fundamental. So if you can really hone in on those skills, overall you become a stronger student, learner, and ultimate graduate.
Because we had to go deeper. It wasn't enough that students were able to read and comprehend. So they need to have analytics. They need to be able to read multiple pieces of text and then create their own opinions. So for the 21st century, this is what we need to do. And so we needed, to incorporate that into our curriculum. And I think that's one of the very big pluses of the Common Core.
So how did your team go about revamping all of the curriculum?
Exactly. Well, that was about a 4-year process. And I'm really proud to say that Springfield is at the forerunner of that. So about 4 years ago, we received a Race to the Top grant, which positioned us very well to do this work.
So the Race to the Top grant was a federal grant?
It was a federal grant that Springfield was eligible for.
Okay.
And you could have done a number of things with it. But under the leadership of Mr. Warwick, he knew that if we were going to be able to be successful with this Common Core, that we really need to do what you said and revamp all our curriculum. So we did, and the thing that I am most proud of is that we did it with teachers. We did it with our very own expertise in-house. We brought a lot of training in on what the Common Core looked like, what does it look like when you incorporate literacy standards into science, like you said, and math. And then we created units, K through 12, in ELA and math, with the new Common Core standards. And they were influenced by our very own teachers. We created assessments for each one of those units.
So these aren't, state assessments. No. These are our own quizzes and tests in the classrooms every day.
Every day, and they're rich with, like we talked about, with the literature, They go very deep into the content. Now, when I went to school, you learned arithmetic. You know, you learned how to manipulate numbers, you learned algorithms. Now, in order to apply that mathematics across jobs that haven't even been created yet, we're graduating students.
Right.
They're going to be in a workforce. The jobs haven't even been created yet. So we had to go much deeper into the mathematics. The students have to not only complete or finish, you know, problem solving, but then they have to be able to articulate the process that they went through either mentally or on paper. And so that is a big change. And that is reflected in our units and in our assessments.
So let me ask you in terms of rigor, because you said already before Common Core, Massachusetts had the most rigorous standards in the country. And Common Core seems to kind of require more.
Exactly.
And so it just seems like it's a lot of rigor for the students. So how are we addressing that issue?
Well, let me just start by saying our students can do it.
I believe that too.
They really can.
Yes.
So that is not even a question, okay? Our students have the capacity. It's our job to bring forth to them this rigorous curriculum, like you said. We have to put it in front of them. We understand that they can do it. And then we have to scaffold the learning so that they can believe they can do it.
When you say scaffold the learning?
I mean, this is rigorous. So at first glance, you might say to yourself, oh, this is too hard, right? So by scaffolding the learning is breaking down the standards into manageable pieces, skills and knowledge, and helping the students build their knowledge base and the confidence that they need in order to tackle this very difficult work.
So that was taken into account, sort of the building blocks necessary to get to ultimately what students are going to be responsible for learning and showcasing that they've mastered this on tests in the school and also the state test.
And you know, there's been a big shift in the teaching profession as well. We don't, as teachers, think our job is just to teach anymore. We really take on the responsibility for the learning. So that's huge. You know, it's not like, well, I said it, I showed it.
Yes.
We have, you know, evolved over the past 10 or 15 years to really understand that our job is not done until the student has learned it.
And that's why those tests and quizzes in the classroom are so important. Great.
So,
yeah.
And you know, we took a PARC test last year, and it gave us an idea of the kind of the testing for the future. And we're actually making adjustments to our curriculum as we speak, so that our students will get the most relevant information in front of them, so that they will be prepared.
So if I'm in a 6th grade class at this school, and you know, a friend of mine is in a 6th grade class at another school, are we learning the same thing at the same weeks? You know, is the curriculum aligned throughout the district?
It is that aligned. You explained it perfectly. We have a lot of mobility in our district. We have students move and come in, and so we could not, you know, afford to not have that level of alignment. So our students, if they do move, will recognize, wow, this is where I was at my other school, and I can just pick up and go on.
Great, great, great. Well, it's a lot of work, and we're doing it now. We're currently
doing it now
under the Common Core standards,
Correct.
teaching those in our schools. How long have we been actually teaching under Common Core?
I'd say 2 years.
2 years now. Okay, so we're getting into it. And when does it become, or when did it become mandated by the state that all schools, districts?
2011, the Common Core were issued, and then they gave this, you know, the districts some time to adopt and adapt into their current curriculum. But I'd say the expectation became very real with the PARC test. And so, you know, that's when they were going to use a lot of the standards from that in that test that we have been teaching in the PARC.
So districts did have some room as to what their timeline for implementing Common Core would be. But thankfully, we started early so that when these new assessments came out, we were probably a little more poised for success than some other districts in the state who hadn't done that work yet.
I really feel that we have, and I can just give you a quick example of what the difference is, so maybe the parents could see. On the test, students had to read 2 or 3 pieces of text, and then they had to answer questions by synthesizing that text, and then provide evidence from the text that they had just read to support their answer. So our students, I feel, were very prepared to do that.
That's great.
So in classes, they're not just given 1 piece of text, they're given several pieces of text, and they annotate the text, And then they talk to their fellow students and kind of grapple over, well, how did you know that? Where's your evidence?
That's right. Right.
You'll see a lot of debate in the classrooms now.
I bet. Well, that's great. I mean, I think what we got to see today is sort of the very high 30,000-foot view of what Common Core means and what the curriculum is here in Springfield Public Schools across our district. But ultimately, what it comes down to is the teachers, the students, and the families. And so we hope that you have learned some new information today, some good information, and you will use this, and you will actually take some time in the evenings to take a look at your child's homework if you don't already do that. See what they're learning and see what they're doing, and as always, we're always saying, talk to your child's teacher, go to their school, and be involved. And so many of our parents are.
Oh, yes.
So many of our parents are, but there's always room for more. So thank you for joining us here on this special segment of SPS Spotlight, but don't go away because next we're going to learn about technology in our schools. Technology is a very important part of the PARCC test and of the future, these jobs that have yet to be created.
We're very excited about the next segment because our students, I won't spoil it, but our students are going to have an opportunity that I don't think a lot of students in our neighboring districts are going to have.
Absolutely. So stay tuned, and thank you, Dr. Fenton, for being with us.
Thank you for having me.
Great. Thanks for staying with us, and welcome back to Focus SPS. As promised, we are joined by the Chief Officer of Information. Did I get that right?
Chief Information Officer.
Chief Information Officer, Mr. Paul Foster. And what that title really means is that you oversee the technology in the district from an administrative standpoint and also from a student learning standpoint.
Yes.
And I think what we're going to focus on today is what that work for you means for our students. So we just had an interview with Dr. Fenton, and we were talking about Common Core, and we were talking about the PARCC assessment and how technology is a big part of both of those. So let's just talk a little bit about what's going on in our schools right now. And let's just start at the basics, like people need computers to do work these days. So where are we student-wise with computer accessibility in the buildings?
Yeah, great. As of today, we have about 1 laptop computer for every 1.5 students in the district. But actually, starting next school year, in the fall of 2016, we'll have 1 computer for every child in the Springfield Public Schools, 1 laptop computer. Yeah,
that's exciting.
Very exciting. Yeah.
So what does that mean? Are they bringing these laptops home and back to school every day, or is it just assigned to them in their schools?
So it'll be assigned to them in their schools. So the students will have a laptop that's their laptop to use while they're at school. I think in the longer term, we'd love to explore options for allowing students to take them home so they can continue their learning at home and continue the learning they're doing at school with the technology, but we're not quite there yet.
So is it a computer that a student will be able to take from math class to science class so that they have all of their, basically their whole class, their work, their schedules and everything right on that computer?
That's correct. It'll look a little different for elementary students than it does for students in middle school and high school. In the elementary school, our students generally stay in the same class for most of the day, and so the computer will stay in that class with them. But for our middle and high school students, they'll pick up their laptop when they get to school in the morning, and it'll go with them as they go from class to class throughout the day, and then they'll check it back in at the end of the day.
So we know that that means things like when you have a paper that you're working on, you can word process that paper on your computer. But there's so many other things that our kids are doing with their phones and their computers at home. So hopefully there's something more exciting too in the teaching world.
Right. Yeah, we like to think that there's going to be lots of options for our students and our teachers to leverage the technology. And the reality is, if you look at our society today, almost no matter where you go in the work world and college, you use technology to create content, to work, and to be productive. And we really just want to set the same expectation for our students. And a good example that I like to use, I'd love to see an elementary student, not just learn a math concept, but learn a math concept and then take their laptop computer and record themselves making a video explaining that math concept to other students.
Fun stuff. And I mean, that's the world that our kids live in. And so that might also help them to be more engaged in the learning process.
Absolutely. We've visited some schools around the country where students have a laptop with them all day, every day. And one of the things that you notice, our students, generally speaking, are really naturally gravitate towards technology. And when you visit schools that have already kind of embarked on this process, what you see is students actively working, actively engaged, working in pairs, working in small groups, collaborating, creating things like videos together.
Right. Now, how are our teachers, what role are they going to play in in this new technological area?
Sure, that's a great question. Our teachers, it'll be a learning curve for many of our teachers. We've been doing teaching in a similar mode, in a similar way for a long time, where teachers sort of convey information to students and students kind of absorb and then practice applying that information.
Yep.
And much of that will continue, but really the role of the teacher is going to shift to facilitating. There's so much information available to our students. You can think about if you go on Google and search Google,
Yeah.
Pick any topic and you're going to find millions of pieces of information. Some of it's good, some of it's bad. And so in some ways, the role of our teachers is shifting from being the person who knows the information and is conveying it to students to the person who's helping students kind of find the information and navigate that information, figure out what's right, what's wrong, what's useful information, and then how to apply it, how to create new knowledge and be productive with that information.
So it seems like there's a fine line there, because you still want the teacher to play a prominent role in the education process, and not leave it to the student to sort of educate themselves. And so there must be some training, there must be some studies around how to do this the right way.
Absolutely. There's a number of districts, fortunately for us, that have gone before us. And to be honest, part of what we're messaging to our teachers is we're going to have this technology available to you and to your students. So try something. Try something new. Try something different, leveraging the technology, using the technology in a way that you haven't thought of before. And we're seeing this as really a 3 or 4 year project. So we're not expecting all of our teachers to use technology all day, every day, next year. And I should add, we wouldn't want them to. Technology is a tool. Just like we use it in our work lives as a tool, we expect our students to use it. But it's not the only tool. There's times for a conversation. There's times for writing with pencil and paper. So it's going to be a tool, but not something we use all of the time. And so for our teachers, there will be a learning curve, and we will provide training, and we will gradually increase sort of the level of expectation. But we really want folks to try something. One of the wonderful things about technology is you can do a lot of different things. Right. And we want to encourage our teachers to allow their students to try different things. So in the past, a teacher might have given an assignment to their class to write a paper. Now, in this world we're heading into, they can still give a similar assignment and that's based on the same content, based on the same standards, but they might give students the freedom to decide, do they want to write a paper? Do they want to create a website? Do they want to do a video?
Right.
And giving the students the opportunity to decide how to demonstrate their learning.
That's fantastic. I know my own son, when he has some assignments now, he turns them in as a presentation. And so it's a lot more exciting for him to work on than sitting down and just writing a paper. Yep. So it's those types of things.
Yeah, and I think you mentioned student engagement earlier. And one of the things I really appreciate about technology is one of the things we want to cultivate in our students is perseverance and persistence. And I've noticed it with my son as well. When he's using technology, there's a greater will when he's struggling with something to push through and keep trying it. Technology kind of lends itself to trial and error. And that's kind of a skill that we want to cultivate in our students.
Yeah, excellent. Now I know that one of the sort of the first steps into the world of technology we took was smart boards and outfitting our schools with smart boards. That's been a few years now.
Yes.
I would imagine that most of our teachers are pros at using the smart boards, and I know that when I go in classrooms and I see the way that they're using it, it's a lot different than when I was in school.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's actually a similar evolution to what we're talking about with the use of the laptops in the classroom. When we first put smart boards into classrooms, many teachers, it's an interactive tool and you can touch it, you can move things around on the screen. But for many of our teachers, when they first got smart boards in their classroom, they used it to project and put a PowerPoint slide up on the screen. But now, as you suggested, teachers have gotten so much more comfortable. So now teachers are, using the interactive features of it, but they're also inviting students up to the smart board, and students are, using the interactive features on the smart board to, solve math problems or to demonstrate their learning in front of the class.
Right. Really exciting stuff. I mean, the fact that our students, are there many districts in the state or nationwide where there's one computer for every student? Is that pretty common these days?
Probably not as common as it should be.
Yeah.
There are a number of districts who've been at the forefront of this, but I think even within Massachusetts, we'll certainly, and probably New England, I believe will be the largest school district in New England to be kind of taking on this endeavor.
Once again, we're leading the way.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think we believe it's good for our kids. At a really basic level, our fundamental mission is getting our children ready for college and career. And we know that when our students leave our school district, they may go to the military, they may go to college, they may go into the workforce, but it doesn't matter where they go. The expectation is that they will use technology to accomplish whatever their purpose is.
Right.
And the reality is they need to be doing that now when they're with us, so they're ready when they leave us.
Absolutely. Couldn't say it any better. Thank you so much for joining us,
Thanks for
Paul.
having me.
I hope that you all have learned something new here today, 2 new topics that we talked about with you. I think this topic is extremely exciting. Technology is all around us, and we want to make sure that our students are able to use that productively as students, so that when, as Paul said, when they go into the workforce, they're ready to hit the ground running. So great stuff happening here in our district, and we hope that you'll stay tuned for another SPS Focus in coming weeks, where you'll learn more about Springfield Public Schools and what's keeping us great.